have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
I'm Ann Northrup.
And in the news this week, Mitt gets worse. You saw that Romney picked anti-gay Paul Ryan as his running mate. We'll discuss the impact on the race and his record on LGBT rights.
We'll give you the whole rundown of his votes. Better news from the Olympics, where 10 out lesbian and gay athletes have won medals in the Olympic Games.
We got a bad court decision on same-sex marriage out of Hawaii, where it all got started.
But a good piece of news from the U.S. Army, which has awarded a Brigadier General star to an out lesbian.
The out gay student in Indianapolis who was expelled, I think it was earlier this year, for fighting back against bullies, is allowed back to school, sort of.
Thousands of people in New York lined up for free vibrators on the street, but were stopped by our lovely Mayor Bloomberg, who later had to relent under the force of all the publicity.
Buzzkill was the headline in the Post. Yeah. And I'm going to review Bring It On, the musical, and three one-acts by Horton Foote.
But of course, all the obsessive news this week has been about Representative Paul Ryan of Wisconsin being picked by Mitt Romney to be his vice presidential running mate, or as he originally said, the next president of the United States.
Apparently, I saw Obama do that too with Joe Biden. Yeah. But his record is so bad that they hardly have even gotten to the gay stuff, so that's what we're going to do here.
Right, yeah, you may not have heard as much of that in the news, although you can get the full rundown on Paul Ryan's LGBT record in Congress and elsewhere by going either to the Human Rights Campaign's website at hrc.org or to the Advocate magazine's website, advocate.com. We'll put those websites up for you while we go through this.
I mean, we are going to go through the gay record, but in general, you know, the conventional wisdom seems to be that this is a guy who will excite some of the Republican base, but will help Romney lose the election because of his extreme views on Medicare and things like that, and Social Security, and his embrace of Ayn Rand, the atheist philosopher who he loves.
Who he has since disavowed, I guess, because of her atheism, but he supports her, you know, capitalist individualism.
But what troubled me was reading that this really puts him in the spotlight, and he is at least a smoother right-winger. And that really sets him up for 2016.
I've had the same thought.
And you know, the right-wing nuts, who do they have? Herman Cain, Newt Gingrich, a bunch of miscreants and numbskulls. But this time, the next time, they would have Paul Ryan to back, to put up there and actually get him in there.
Unless he's totally humiliated in this race. He's being talked about as being so attractive and the most attractive vice presidential candidate ever. I said,
he looks like Eddie Munster.
Wait, I thought how soon they forget Sarah Palin. Come on.
That's right.
But we've been concentrating on his desire to destroy the social safety net, which, of course, his supporters say is necessary because it's all going down the drain anyway. I fear that people will find this attractive, maybe not. People are already heckling him. It's still a toss-up as far as I can see. But here is his LGBT record in case you have missed that.
Should we start with the good news? He did actually vote for the Employment Non-Discrimination Act once. But when he voted for it, he also voted for a procedural mechanism, a motion to recommit, that would have killed the bill.
He tried to kill it. I have no idea why he then voted for it.
Well, maybe, you know, the log cabin people, the gay Republicans, they say they have dialogue with him. He's somebody that they can talk to. even though when you hear the rest of this record, you're gonna wonder why.
I think they are reaching. Here's the record. He has voted twice for the federal marriage amendment, which would outlaw same-sex marriage everywhere.
He's in sync with Mitt Romney on that.
He has voted 5 times against a hate crimes bill that includes sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression.
And he comes from the libertarian side of the party, so lest we forget there are people even on our side who don't like hate crimes laws. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt.
This is good annotation. But in spite of voting for the Employment Non-Discrimination Act for no discernible reason, he voted twice against ending Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So evidently he does not believe in employment non-discrimination in the military.
And he believes that the District of Columbia is a plantation, and he voted to prohibit funding for their domestic partner registry back in 2001.
He also voted to ban same-sex couples from adopting in the District of Columbia.
Now, lest we forget, when Mike Dukakis ran for president out of Massachusetts, one of the things he did when he was governor was to ban gay adoptions.
We are not voting on Mike Dukakis, and that was a long time ago.
I'm saying, and of course, Mitt Romney has also reversed a lot of his position.
And we didn't approve that.
No, of course we didn't.
So why are you even...
I'm saying that there are,
mitigating factors for Paul Ryan?
Speaking of Mitt,
I'm not through with his.
Well, I also
Ryan's
want to say about
record.
the Employment Non-Discrimination
Okay.
Act. Mitt Romney used to be for that. And then he decided, when he realized that he was going to run for president, that he better come out against it. And when he came out against it, Romney said, this will give free rein to activist judges. Now, we're talking about passing a law. It's not a judicial decision.
Well, but that's not the point. The point is if you pass a law that sets up a system where people can sue for being discriminated against, then it gives power to the judges.
Gives
what he's
power to the
talking
judges
about.
to enforce the law, not to make the law.
Yes, but he's saying
No,
the judges would take advantage of that.
They don't want a judiciary at all. And don't forget, Robert Bork is Mitt Romney's chair of his Judiciary Committee to pick judges. Robert Bork, look him up if you've forgotten
and
about
Dan
him.
Senor is his foreign policy advisor who just got him in all that trouble in Israel and Poland.
On purpose.
And in the Olympics. The Olympics, do you remember that?
On purpose.
On purpose?
Sure. I mean, to go over there and get attacked for attacking Palestinians, that's the kind of stuff that he wanted to do.
Well, I think he was seen as a screw-up on his trip.
By us.
Romney also said about the Employment Non-Discrimination Act that it would be an unfair burden on employers. Ryan, just to complete his LGBT record, was a big supporter of the anti-same-sex marriage constitutional amendment passed by the state of Wisconsin last year. He cast several votes to forbid federal funds for syringe exchange, and he voted to exempt faith-based initiatives from civil rights laws.
And he's been a consistent opponent of a woman's right to choose, earning a 100% rating from the National Right to Life and zeros from NARAL.
And he's also one of these people who's been very loud lately about the Obama administration's desire to enforce the availability of contraception for employees of Catholic hospitals. And, it's all this line about religious freedom and religious liberty. When a religious organization runs an institution like a hospital, not a church, a hospital, they are and should be subject to laws of public accommation and non-discrimination.
If they receive federal funds, which
Yes.
everybody does. Everybody takes Medicare. You want to run a nice little hospital charity where you do your own thing? Nobody's going to tell you what to do. You can do whatever the hell you want. But they all take government money. When you take our money, you've got to comply with our laws.
He also says, I saw someone say that we were going to lose votes because he's such a good Catholic and Catholics are against same-sex marriage. That's wrong. The
true.
Catholic population is substantially for same-sex marriage. That was just ignorant. But he is a Catholic who says that our rights come from God, not the Constitution. Our rights come from God, from a higher natural law. Now, this kind of stuff, I think, should make people subject to prosecution for treason, but that's just me. He also co-sponsored a ban on in vitro fertilization, the birth control pill, all abortions. He wants to prosecute doctors and women. He voted against the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act.
He's a bad guy, but
Joe
the
Biden's
Log
gonna
Cabin Club
assassinate him on that.
says that he's the author of the Republican Path to Prosperity, folks.
He refused to sign the Human Rights Campaign pledge to not discriminate against LGBT employees in his office.
That's not very nice.
Not very nice at all. And he charged $15 for people to attend his public town halls as a representative. $15 a head to go to his town hall. He's a U.S. representative.
It's a co-payment.
And when people showed up to protest, he had them arrested and treated very badly and abused by the cops. But, Log Cabin likes him and thinks he's a strong choice with a good message.
The Times did this story on young Republicans who are loath to mention the party's positions on all these issues, gay rights, abortion, all those kinds of things, because it loses them, the young, even if they believe it themselves, they know it loses them their generation. And we can only hope that we will have a generation lost to the Republican Party.
One day I think, man, this guy's really bad. This is really going to take the ticket down the drain. And the next day I think, people are going to fall for this guy.
I'd be willing to bet good money on Obama at this point winning the election, and I'm not going to get overconfident about it. But
and I'm not going to have one of our bets on that because I think he's
while
good too.
all the cable shows obsess about who's going to be the next president, and a lot of you out there think, if we could only just get Obama in, we'll be saved again. We weren't saved the last time. He's preferable to Romney, of course. But we're not paying attention to the House races or the Senate races. We will likely not have any chance for Democrats to regain the House because that's where the jillionaires are concentrating their money.
Right.
They're
smart.
Plus on your state legislature. They have bought up state legislatures across this country who are passing the most heinous laws. And not just in, even in New York, they bought the state Senate.
Paul Ryan is a bought and paid for product of the Club for Growth with Grover Norquist and the Koch brothers. He's very tight with all those people.
I want to see him lose his House seat in Wisconsin. That would be sweet on election night because he's going to run for that as well.
Yeah. I watched the old PBS reran its American Masters profile of Gore Vidal.
Yeah, yes.
I watched it, and one of the things he says is, the American people are so stupid. They think the president has power, and they get focused on that, and that's really not what we should be paying attention to. I'm concerned about what the nomination of Paul Ryan does to Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin. Now, as we're taping...
Tammy Baldwin is an out lesbian representative who is the Democratic nominee for Senate out there, and as we're taping...
The Republicans are holding a primary to choose her opponent for the Senate. They have 4 people running.
Now, former Governor Tommy Thompson's very popular in general, but if he doesn't win, and he was the most likely to be able to beat her.
But
he's got a Tea Party opponent.
Eric Hovde, who is self-financing his campaign, is paying for 95% of his campaign, and is an extreme right-winger and is expected to win. Now, we will see next week what has happened as we are taping. You will know already. But does the addition of Paul Ryan to the Romney ticket bring out a more conservative vote in Wisconsin, all the Scott Walker supporters, for instance, and give Tammy trouble in the Senate race?
It could also get us fired up. I mean, after all, the last election they had, there was a special election that confirmed the heinous Governor Scott Walker, they tried to recall him.
Wisconsin has gone Democratic in the presidential race for years, and has elected Tammy as a representative. And the recall elections on the senators in Wisconsin were sort of split.
Yes. Well, we got back one of the houses of the legislature. I was, however, encouraged to see Governor Walker show up in a turban at the Sikh temple. He did. Is right here.
Good.
Which was a good sign of solidarity. I think we all should have done that week.
But we also, in the midst of this, wanted to remind you of that the top of the ticket is Mitt Romney. And there is this project called Mitt Gets Worse. that is a series of videos testifying by people who have worked with him when he was governor of Massachusetts, among other places, about their experiences with him, some real-life experience that people have had with Mitt Romney on LGBT issues. And the one we want to show you today, or part of it, is Kathleen Henry, who was the head of the LGBT Youth Commission under
It was a big
Romney.
deal, which was, well, it was set up by the previous administration, I believe, right?
Yes, but what you will hear from her is that Romney at first seemed sympathetic and then killed the whole thing. So let's look at Kathleen Henry, Mitt Gets Worse.
The trajectory is just so clear. I mean, really, inauguration address, 2 proclamations, and then off the cliff. My name is Kathleen Henry, and I was chairperson of the Governor's Commission on Gay and Lesbian Youth under the administration of Governor Mitt Romney. It seemed at the beginning that this was going to be someone that we were going to be able to work with. Governor Romney actually issued proclamations, official proclamations with the government seal on the bottom, naming Gay and Lesbian Youth Pride Day in honor of the Youth Pride Parade that is held in Massachusetts every year. In 2006, he did not issue a proclamation. We had asked for it, and it was not forthcoming. I received a call from Beth Myers, the chief of staff of Governor Romney, telling me that the governor was going to rescind the executive order that had brought the commission into being. In other words, the commission was out of business. Mitt Romney's name was on the same page as the words bisexual and transgendered youth. And I was told that because of that, that's why he was shutting down the first in the nation commission, a commission that states, and for that matter, all around the world, look to for guidance and for best practices advice in terms of suicide prevention for GLBT youth, that's why he was shutting the commission down.
So there's just another reason to be suspicious of anything semi-moderate that Mitt tries to throw at us in this election season. Beware. And meanwhile, both parties have been getting ready for their conventions coming up shortly. Tampa for the Republicans, Charlotte, North Carolina for the Democrats, and their platform committees have been meeting. And while the Log Cabin is touting the fact that it has been credentialed to the Republican Platform Committee, and they, Romney is great, and Paul Ryan is someone they can talk to. The Republican Platform Committee would not let a lesbian Navy veteran testify. She was a captain at the Pentagon on 9/11, barely missed getting hit, and wanted to testify about her spouse wouldn't have gotten benefits and been notified if anything had happened to her, and the committee would not hear from her. They would not take 5 minutes
They're trying
to
to do
hear from her.
God's will. Rights come from God, not from the Republican Party.
Or the Constitution.
Right.
Meanwhile, the Democratic Platform Committee has put together its proposed platform, which will then have to be voted on and accepted at the convention. Not that I have any confidence that anyone pays any attention to platforms.
You always say this, and of course
Well,
the things the Republicans put in their committee, if you read them, are just off the charts. I mean,
horrible.
It's like no recognition of sexual orientation rights of any kind in any circuit. It's not just against same-sex marriage; it's against everything.
Everything. They're one of Tammy Baldwin's potential Republican Senate opponents has been quoted as saying that if he were God for a day, he would eliminate homosexuality. Yeah, it'd be nice if he were nominated. But that is the kind of thing the Republicans would like to put in their platform.
Romney hasn't backtracked from all of his positions. He was.
Who knows what his positions are?
Well,
he keeps talking about, we're going to run on my financial plan platform. It's a little better than Paul Ryan's.
He hasn't said what it is yet.
No one knows what it is. except to, of course, cut taxes for the rich. But here are some elements of the Democratic platform, if you want to take them as a vague indication of where the Democrats stand. They're strongly in favor of marriage equality, equal rights for same-sex couples across the board, repeal the Defense of Marriage Act, pass an Inclusive Employment Non-Discrimination Act, prevent vicious bullying, support LGBT youth, although they have not supported specifically the bills in Congress proposing that. And immigration rules should include LGBT families to protect binational
Well, of course,
couples.
the Log Cabin Club is yelling at Obama because he didn't do an executive order on saying contractors have to do
like
this.
the Republicans would.
Well, exactly. Whenever
on.
they say they're appealing to Romney, like he's going to do an executive order.
It's
Forget it.
ridiculous. You know, the idea that the Republican LGBT community criticizes Obama and LGBT
I know,
issues.
it's outrageous.
Insane.
They should stick to their own party and clean up their own house.
Exactly.
Now, if you were trying to clean up house in New York, we've got state legislative elections this year. We have a very narrow margin between Democrats and Republicans in our Senate, and it's very hard to get anything through when the Republicans are in power, though we sometimes do. But in Buffalo, we had a Republican who voted for same-sex marriage, a guy
Right.
named Mark Grisanti.
Right.
So he's back.
Eloquent.
He's backed by the Empire State Pride agenda, but he has a Tea Party opponent in the Republican primary that's going to be in September. The leading Democratic candidate is endorsed by the Conservative Party, and his name is Swanek, and endorsed by the National Organization for Marriage, who gave him $10 or $15,000. Now, the head of the who's trying to elect Senate Democrats, a guy named Mike Gianaris out of Queens, gave this conservative non-back guy $6,500 of his own campaign money to get elected because he says, look, if we don't get this, he's a bad guy. He didn't say he's a bad guy. He is a bad guy. If we don't get him elected, we can't get the rest of our agenda through in the legislature. It is an argument. I mean, if this is the only way that you can win the seat.
If Grisanti is voting for same-sex marriage.
Yeah, but Grisanti, who was the guy who voted for same-sex marriage, the Pride agenda won't tell me what his position is on their number one priority, the Gender Equality, Non-Discrimination, Gender Identity and Expression, Non-Discrimination Act.
Maybe we should be putting our energy into electing Grisanti and getting him to become a Democrat.
Well, that's too late for that. Although,
A girl can dream.
well, now that you raise that,
Yes.
the guy backing this guy Swanek, the Democrat, is this guy Steve Pigeon, who handled the last coup in Albany that upset everything and screwed everything up. We don't want people like this back in politics.
Too complicated for me.
All right. You
My
can read my story in the Gay City News.
I
about
think
it.
my final political note, in Texas, we have Mary Gonzalez, who won the Democratic primary for state representative from El Paso, and she was identified at the time as a lesbian, but she has now come out as pansexual. She's open to everybody and everything, and she has stated this publicly, and she has no general election opponent, which is a good thing.
That's what Merv Griffin said when they finally confronted him about his. He said, I'm trisexual. I'll try anything.
That is not pansexual. That is a joke. And Peter Allen announced himself as pansexual at one point.
Well,
Anyway.
okay.
Here's a semi-political thing. We said last week that Mitt Romney had announced that he did not believe the Boy Scouts should ban gay members or troop leaders.
Well, he didn't say it. His campaign confirmed that he hadn't changed his position on
I
that.
think we have to accept that.
Yes, I do.
And we said that that President Obama had not said anything. Well, of course, that very day as we were taping, the White House answered a question and said that Obama does oppose discrimination everywhere, including in the Boy Scouts.
Because they bugged the studio. And if we say they would like to embarrass us, but we're happy to be embarrassed in this way that the president finally spoke out.
The Boy Scouts
Because he's the head of the Boy Scouts.
And he's not quitting as head of the Boy Scouts in spite of his opposition to discrimination.
Well, Mike Bloomberg is a big boy. He's a former Eagle Scout. He hasn't turned in his
I don't
badge.
expect good things from him. And the Boy Scouts replied, when told that the president didn't agree with them, said, well, good people can disagree about things. Both presidents.
Good people can discriminate and ruin people's lives.
Yeah. Well,
No, they can't.
let's go to the Olympics. That's
Yeah.
that's a fun topic. Well, the Olympics were a mixed bag, certainly, but the out lesbian and gay participants did pretty well.
Well, we're told that there were 20 out lesbian and gay participants.
Yeah.
And 10 of them won medals. That's a
In-
pretty good record. If Team Gay was a country, it would have finished 31st overall with.
And that's only the out ones. If you add in the closeted ones, it probably would have been more. At any rate, the medals were won by the U.S. women's basketball team, which had an out lesbian member.
Simone Augustus.
The Netherlands field hockey team.
Whole bunch of them.
Lots. The U.S. soccer team, which had one out one, Megan Rapinoe,
Who has been profiled this week about
by
and
NBC.
including about her lesbianism,
Yeah.
which she's very, very, you know.
Well, she says that since she came out, she's playing better, she's happy. The team also has an out lesbian coach. It is impossible for me to believe that they are the only lesbians
Well,
connected
she said,
to the
look,
U.S.
I
soccer
think there's a
team.
lot of gay women in sports, and it's widely known in the team that they can live a pretty open lifestyle without being open in the media. But I think for men, unfortunately, it's not the same climate in the locker room.
Well, the men, the out gay men who won medals were both equestrians, a
Carl-
British equestrian and a Dutch equestrian.
Yes, and
And then there was Lisa Raymond, a U.S. tennis player who won a medal.
mixed doubles.
And a German cyclist, also a lesbian.
So they did.
Now, I was, I kind of wonder, Matthew Mitchum, who won the gold medal in platform diving, Australian, and was the only out athlete at the games last time, 4 years ago, did not make the finals.
He had a lot of injuries, and he didn't have a good year.
But NBC profiled him and did a whole profile about him coming out, being out last time,
And he's a fun guy.
and that he's more relaxed now that he's out. It was a good profile, and nice to see that.
Now, the closing ceremonies were full of gay stuff.
But wait a minute, before
We're not gonna
can I get?
Sure.
We're going to get to that.
Oh.
I also want to give NBC credit for profiling Caster Semenya, the South
Oh, yes.
African runner who had been her career had been put on hold when her
Gender had been questioned.
Exactly. She went through, and the NBC profile said that she went through hell because of this.
Sure.
And they did a very good profile of her.
Well, you know, sometimes they do these tests on you, and by the way, the test for this changes over the years, and you get news that you didn't know.
Okay, let's do the closing ceremony.
Well, the closing
gay.
Well, we had George Michael singing "Freedom," and the word "freedom" big. I mean, I got to give Danny Boyle a lot of credit for the politics of both the opening and the closing ceremony.
I loved him. He did a David Bowie tribute.
He had John Lennon singing Imagine there's no religion. That wouldn't have happened if Mitt Romney was still in charge of the elections, though it might have happened with Paul Ryan, a big Ayn Rand follower.
I don't think so. The Pet Shop Boys were
Yeah.
adorable, being driven around the stadium singing.
Pet Shop Boys, Spice Girls.
Oh, the Spice Girls was the best. I mean, to see Victoria Beckham standing on top of a car, singing her heart
They
out.
were having a ball over there.
Oh my God, it was great.
And you know, of course.
And Naomi Campbell and Kate Moss, for heaven's sake.
I mean, we have this image of the British as being kind of reticent. It's over.
They have a sense of humor.
And, well, a tremendous sense of humor.
Freddie Mercury.
Yes, and, well, he's long dead, but he was there at the ceremony on the screen.
Exactly.
Some people had to be on the screen because they wouldn't show up, like David Bowie.
And they had a cutaway shot of the U.S. soccer women there. I didn't think the athletes were really getting the closing ceremonies at all.
It was very British, English.
Very British, very gay. But the U.S. soccer women were standing there looking like they were all about to kiss each other any minute.
Now, we got a picture of Tom Daly here. During the closing ceremony, this is him during the closings, I think it was during the closing ceremonies. When he came on the screen, Bob Costas, who did a pretty good job, at NBC, mentioned,
That's the medal ceremony.
Yeah, he said, we saw One Direction, which is that boy band, and he said, Tom Daly is every bit as popular with British ladies as One Direction. First of all, I think it's British girls that like One Direction, not ladies.
Well,
But he didn't mention.
Tom Daly's 16.
No, he's 18 now. He's 18 now.
Okay.
But he didn't mention British laddies might be into Tom Daly too, which I think they are.
Andy and I argued about this all the way to the studio. I said, come on, that is
That's
par
what we're
for the
fighting
course.
for.
We certainly are, but we're a long way from that
one of
kind
the interesting things
acknowledgement.
about Daly was when he was 14, he was in the Beijing Olympics.
Yes.
And when he came back to school, he got bullied because he was now a famous person, and the kids, they had to take him out of school. I mean, they don't just bully you for being gay, they bully you for being different in any way.
As I said, the human race, an unsuccessful species driving itself to extinction.
Can't you be happy for him?
No. But for more detail on everything Olympic, go to outsports.com, which will give you all this rundown of medals and people and everything else.
And then in the context of the Games, we heard about the gay Australian Olympian, former Olympian, G. Wallace, who we have a picture of there. He's on the trampoline there. He won a silver medal in Sydney in 2000, and he'd been contemplating for a while coming out about having HIV, and he did it. Folks, hardly anybody does this anymore, but he was inspired by Greg Louganis, and he saw a profile of Louganis that CNN's Piers Morgan did in London, and it made him think, and he couldn't sleep, so he came out.
That's the kind of thing we like to see.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's maybe do marriage news
Sure.
next. All right.
Bad news from Hawaii.
Yep.
Well, I mean,
A federal district
yes.
judge decided in a case where same-sex couples were arguing for marriage rights on an equal protection basis that it should be a vote of the people or the legislature.
Well,
there is no inherent right. Hawaii has a law that says the
Civil
legislature
unions.
can do marriage if it wants
Yes,
to.
yes.
And therefore it should be left to that, and there is no state constitutional right to marriage.
The reason we bring cases, our side brings cases like this in Hawaii and in Nevada, which we're going to talk about in a second, is because they do have civil unions, they do have benefits,
Right.
and they're saying, why are you denying us the word? It can only be because of animus. Again, you don't like us, and that's why we bring it. So this is the first one of these that we've lost.
It is, but it's not, well, the first one lately that we've lost. We lost a number, including one in New York State early on.
But we didn't have any rights.
But it was the same kind of reasoning
Well,
that
but we
it
didn't
was
have-
all about procreation.
Yes, but
It
we
was all about
did not have
there's-
any partner rights in the state of New York at
But
that
the
time.
reason these judges make these decisions against us is because
They
they
hate us.
say, absolutely, but their reasoning is, well, there could be a good reason to reserve marriage to opposite-sex couples because you have to really give opposite-sex couples an incentive to get married because otherwise, they wouldn't. And if you let same-sex couples get married, then you devalue marriage and opposite-sex couples won't want to get married. So we have to reserve it as a special thing for opposite-sex
And
couples.
this horrible judge is the first one to cite the horrible non-study, the Regeneris study.
Oh, yes.
Which
Texas study.
Which is not really a study. It was just a polemic that said that
Yes.
we don't make good parents.
Funded by the right wing.
Which has been discredited, but
Yes.
the judge cited it anyway.
Unbelievable.
Right.
Now, the Nevada case that Andy refers to is, again, in Nevada, there's a domestic partner registry. There are some rights. And we're doing this very interesting leapfrog thing where we say, okay, we'll settle for the domestic partner registry or the civil unions. And then we go to court and say, well, you gave us civil unions or a domestic partner registry, so not to give us marriage would be discrimination. So we're arguing for marriage.
Are my right-wing friends watching this show? It's a trick. You on to us yet? Well, they always said it was a stepping stone, and it is, of course.
It is. So the judge, there were some motions to get rid of the case or to let the right wing in, and we reached an agreement. Lambda Legal reached an agreement with the right wing and said, look, we'll let you in the case, but we have to do this as a real discussion.
Well, the judge was very interesting. He set arguments for November 26th in Reno, if you'd like to go. He says, it makes sense to get this decided and off with the circus train. Then he said, testimony would not only be useless, but an absurd inquiry. So just give me your briefs and let me get this over with. That's funny.
Well, speaking of
He's a
absurd,
character. I don't know what to expect of him, but
I feel I have to do a Chick-fil-A update, although
Okay.
I'm sick of it. But it's all
I've
about...
never eaten one.
Me either, because they're mostly in the South. There's
Correct.
only one in New York City.
NYU, maybe.
But there's still simmering discussion of this, and the artist who did the "Taste Like Hate"
Yes.
drawing on the side of
Oh,
a
you're
Chick-fil-A.
calling it a drawing instead of a defacement
I think he's an
of the
artist.
building.
No, I don't
All right.
call it vandalism. I
Okay.
call it art. He's been arrested. In Maryland, they found stickers, like HRC equal sign stickers and protest signs affixed to a Chick-fil-A there, but there was no damage to the building, but they're still trying to track down the vandals.
Well-
Pat Robertson has a message for students who are protesting Chick-fil-A. Shut your mouth till you can bring forth a baby from that part of the anatomy that you concentrate on.
Where the sun don't shine.
Exactly.
And on the other hand, a guy named Jonathan Merritt, who's the son of the former Southern Baptist Convention president, James Merritt, he wrote an article called In Defense of Eating at Chick-fil-A. So one of his ex-male tricks, who had sex with him in a car, wrote a piece about him being gay and exposed him.
A woman put a video on YouTube saying she'd been rejected for a job 30 years ago at Chick-fil-A because she was not a member of a church.
Can we
30
get some more
years.
current examples,
Yeah,
please?
Well, here's a current
30
example.
years ago, Mike Dukakis opposed
Oh,
gay adoption.
Back to him. Dallas police sergeant has been transferred in his assignment because he came back from lunch and put a Chick-fil-A bag down on the desk of a lesbian police officer, with a very
Oh.
nah.
Oh.
And
Chicken wars.
Exactly, and she got offended, rightfully,
God.
so he's being investigated. And students at Davidson College in North Carolina protested the fact that the college, they didn't have a Chick-fil-A there, but they regularly ordered from Chick-fil-A for college events, and the students said, really, please don't do that anymore. And the college said, okay, and they've stopped ordering from there.
Good. Well,
Oh, yeah.
are you done with Chick-fil-A?
Yes.
Well, Bishop Blaise Kupich, Blaise, his name is, B-L-A-S-E, of Spokane, Washington, is sending out voter guides about the Washington referendum on same-sex marriage that they're having to whether or not to uphold the new law that was passed. And he was very intense about we have to uphold words like mother and father, which have real depth and meaning. He says,
Yeah.
No. But I'm saying this is all about patriarchal, I'm the father, this kind of stuff. And in patriarchal
You can have
church
two
and all
fathers
that
and two
kind of
mothers.
stuff. Well, we know
it's simply a gender distinction. Meanwhile, REI, the outdoor equipment manufacturer and retailer, which is a very big company, has joined the list of corporations who are supporting the Washington marriage law, and that's
Okay.
considered a big deal. In other marriage news, 15 states, I'm sorry to tell you, have filed an amicus brief with the Supreme Court supporting BLAG, the Bipartisan Legal Advisory Group, the right-wing Boehner-sponsored group, in the Massachusetts Gill case. And their argument is that procreation mandates the upholding of DOMA Section 3. Most of them are predictable southern states, but the Attorney General of Colorado signed on to this
Too bad.
amicus brief.
Well,
and
again,
a
we
few
don't pay
others.
enough attention to a lot of these local and state elections, and then you get bad people like that.
Oh, it's really depressing. Better news in Mississippi, of all places, a young woman named Sierra Sturgis, whose name may be familiar to you because she was involved in an earlier case a year or two ago where she fought for the right to wear a tuxedo in her yearbook picture. And the school tried to stop her, and then she sued or challenged them and won. And then the school just said everybody's going to wear a cap and gown in their yearbook picture. Well, now she wants to have a commitment ceremony with her girlfriend, Emily Key. And so they wanted to hold it at the Mississippi Agriculture and Forestry Museum, where evidently a lot of people get married and hold various public events. It's a state museum, state-owned.
Yes. Do they believe in freedom of expression?
Not until very recently, when the Southern Poverty Law Center challenged their refusal to rent to Sierra and Emily, and they changed their mind. The Mississippi Attorney General tried to claim that they didn't have to rent to them because it was not a legal event.
It's not an illegal event.
Perfectly legal to hold a commitment ceremony.
It's not an illegal event, although I think it was Alabama, check me on this, didn't they pass a law that said if a person who can perform a marriage performs a same-sex marriage, it's a crime?
I don't know.
I thought that they did years ago.
Well,
we'll check on that.
What's interesting to me is that we have won this case on the grounds of a federal First Amendment right and an equal protection argument, but if the state doesn't have a non-discrimination law, I don't understand why they couldn't discriminate.
Well, it's freedom of expression.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not hiring them for a job.
No, but it's a public accommodation
It is a public
thing.
accommodation. Well,
Interesting. If we don't even need state non-discrimination laws because you can make a federal constitutional equal protection argument or even a state constitutional equal protection argument, that would be interesting. And congratulations to MSNBC anchor Thomas Roberts, who may have been the first major anchor to be out.
well, I'm sure we'll get mail on that.
He is going to marry his partner, Patrick Abner, in late September. Patrick works for Merck Pharmaceuticals as their LGBT liaison for HIV and AIDS issues.
Okay. Well, but that's right. Sue Simmons never came out. And she's got a job on Law and Order or something?
Yeah, I was going to
One of
save
those
that for
shows?
entertainment news,
Oh,
but
sorry.
Sue Simmons did not come out, but she will be on Law and Order SVU.
Maybe she'll come out on the show.
On the September premiere, playing a reporter named Sue Simmons.
Oh, right, that's right. We told you earlier this year about Dynasty Young, the out gay student at Arsenal Technical High School who was getting harassed, so finally fought back with using a device to ward off other students who were assaulting him. And he was expelled over this, and now they have said you can come back to the district, but they're putting him someplace else.
Yes, in an alternative high school, which, may end up being better for him, but it seems to me awfully discriminatory. In Ocala, Florida, the ACLU has just won a consent decree with Vanguard High School to allow a gay-straight alliance, which the principal had tried to block.
Okay.
Good news from Washington and the U.S. Army, where Army Colonel Tammy Smith has been promoted to Brigadier General. And
Got a picture of them?
at the ceremony, she had her wife
Tracy Hepner.
pin the Brigadier General's star on her uniform. I believe we have a picture.
We have
of
made progress.
them together. The
And
general. Can
by
we
the
see
way,
that?
yeah, there they are. And one of our viewers wrote to ask me if Romney is going to reinstate Don't Ask, Don't Tell. He did not say he would do that.
Okay.
Or he said he would not do that.
Okay. And the Federal Aviation Administration has revised its pilot rules. They previously had put transgender pilots through this incredible extra psychological testing battery, which the pilots often had to pay for themselves. They have now agreed that everybody goes through the same medical and psychological testing. There is no special testing needed for transgender pilots. This is something that the transgender community has fought for several years once they realized this was happening. And a lot of transgender pilots have been kept out of work for this, and this is a great step forward.
Right.
A number of deaths to mourn.
Well, first of all, we have some corrections on last week's deaths. We mentioned Gore Vidal's grandfather as being a senator from Tennessee. No, that grandfather was from Oklahoma. And so and we also, I think, talked about Marvin Hamlish in a way that was not to his credit. We were speculating about sexual. We know nothing about that. The fact is, he was somebody who gave a lot of joy to gay people with things like the Chorus Line, which had a lot of gay content, and
his work with Streisand and Liza
all that
Minnelli
kind of
and
stuff.
everybody. We didn't mean to dismiss that. We
No.
simply were looking for our angle on it and what we assumed was speculation, which we know nothing about.
Right. And he wrote Sunshine, Lollipops, and Rainbows.
This week we are mourning the death of Ron Palillo at 63 of a heart attack. He was Horshack on Welcome Back, Kotter, and he was an out gay man. He had a longtime partner, Joseph Graham, who survives him.
Yeah.
And he died in Palm Beach, Florida. Ironically, of course, he was on the show with John Travolta,
Right.
who still is
The
not
closet
out.
case. And David Rakoff, 47, who was a comic essayist. He was very close to the Sedaris, Amy and David, and acted in some of their plays. And he was a gay Jewish Canadian transplant to New York and social anthropologist and a very funny guy.
Author and appeared often on This American Life. Also, Jean Merrill, 89 years old, she wrote some classic children's book, The Pushcart War, The Toothpaste Millionaire. She was a radical. These books were all about fighting back against big corporations. Tony Kushner said, she's survived by her partner of 50 years, Ronnie Solbert, who illustrated most of her books. Tony Kushner said, all of this predates Occupy Wall Street by many decades, but she came from understanding the history of labor, immigrants, the struggles of all oppressed people against forces beyond their control.
Just like Dr. Seuss.
Well, these are great children's books.
And
the Pushcart War.
we only mentioned the death of Pete Fisher by suicide last week. He was a pioneer in the Gay Activist Alliance in the early 70s. And for writing his obituary for the Gay City News, which I will send to whoever wants it, I reread The Gay Mystique, the book he wrote in 72. Of the 100 best gay books, Lambda Book Report said, 8 of them were written in 1972, which was this flowering with a lesbian woman by Dell and Phyllis, and all these books that were written at that time. And it was very inspiring to read it. And I think people, I urge, if you're an activist, you consider yourself an activist now, reread these books.
Or want to be one.
Reread these books and see how much more the movement embraced than just marriage and this and that kind of stuff. It was a very, very broad, liberating movement.
Read The Pushcart War, too.
Yes.
All right. And, Helen Gurley Brown, I want to note her death simply because she created a lot of sexual liberation for women.
She said on Johnny Carson, sex is here to stay, and she wouldn't stop saying it. But she put male centerfolds in Cosmopolitan, but she also did a lot about women's sexuality.
She described herself as a feminist before Betty Friedan wrote The Feminine Mystique. She really promoted freedom and power for women.
On the other hand, in 1988,
Cosmo
Cosmo wrote this article saying, heterosexual women don't have to worry about AIDS.
Yes, provoking a great protest by ACT UP in high dudgeon about that. And, she was doing all her freedom in support of women finding men who would then, she talked about being, doing everything for her husband and, being a geisha to
And she
him.
defended Clarence Thomas when
Did she?
over sexual harassment.
She was a mixed bag,
And she
but
said, "Come on."
she was about women's empowerment, and that was a great thing, and so we note that.
Should we talk about this under women's empowerment?
I don't think we have time to
Okay.
do that. The story is that Trojan tried to hand out free vibrators on the street in New York City, and the Bloomberg administration tried to shut them down.
They did
on the
shut them
grounds-
down.
Yes, but then everybody got upset about it. And
as
New
long
York
as Bloomberg
Post-
extorted some money for them to give out the vibrators on the streets, I'm amazed at how long people will stand in the sun for something free. It's only about $35-40, right?
Well, I thought it was great, and I thought it was great that they covered it so much, and the New York Post put Buzzkill on the cover, but we do not have time for the video. Go to NewYorkPost.com if you want to see that, and to the control room, we're not running that video.
Okay.
In San Francisco, speaking of shutting things down, the Most Holy Redeemer Catholic Church has vetoed anybody in drag appearing at a fundraiser for the Castro Country Club, which is a longstanding group that
They're
It's a gay
banning.
group.
They're banning drag
exactly,
in that church.
exactly. Any Catholic church banning drag. Come on,
God.
hypocrites.
Who do you think designed all those vestments? Gay men.
And who's wearing them? Equality Illinois has a booth at the Illinois State Fair this year in Springfield. Good for them. That's where we should show up. And some creep in Provo, Utah, hacked an electronic highway sign. So, you know, those things that flash by the side. God hates gays is what they managed to have flashing on the sign
That's
for a while.
not nice.
No. And what do we think about the Human Rights Campaign's new executive director, Chad Griffin, making $379,000 a year? Which is a $100,000 raise from what Joe Salmonese was
My
making.
problem with all that is that these groups, which have all this money,
Yeah.
don't use it to organize. They do some community organizing, but it's not. It's all top-down community organizing, and that's why, again, I think they should read the gay mystique. You just need some people power to make things happen. And you know, I mean, I talked to the Empire State Pride agenda this week, and I got nothing. I couldn't even get information out of them. It's ridiculous.
Look, I'm not happy that the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force now has a secret donor who is funding their work to stop a casino gambling referendum on the Maryland ballot because they claim they don't want to bring out right-wingers to vote who will kill their marriage referendum. Why are you getting in bed with gambling interests?
They were already in bed with Paul Singer, who's a plutocrat who's electing right-wing Republicans across this country.
Big supporter of Paul Ryan. Why doesn't Paul Singer talk to Paul Ryan and Mitt Romney about same-sex marriage?
Hello. Hello.
All right.
International news.
Yes. Madonna's talking about us in Russia and supporting the Pussy Riot girls who got arrested
Now,
in the cathedral.
why can the Times say Pussy Riot and they can't say the name of the play Cock?
I'm a freedom fighter. Show your wear the pink wristbands and show your love and appreciation for gay people. Good for you, Madonna.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Mayor of Reykjavik, Iceland, wore a pink dress at Gay Pride to support Pussy Riot. Good for him.
Chancellor Angela Merkel in Germany, members of the Conservative Party there calling for same-sex couples in civil partnerships to be given the same tax breaks as heterosexual married couples.
The German Constitutional Court ordered registered couples to be exempt from the land transfer tax like married couples are. All right, some bad international news. In Tunisia, the Islamic Party is proposing a no anti-religious speech law, which is an anti-pro-gay speech law.
And even in Canada, where we have lots of rights, in Vancouver they did a study and found out that same-sex male couples are 25% more likely to be rejected by landlords seeking renters.
Drunk cops.
Lesbians do fine.
Of course. Drunk cops in Zimbabwe raided the Gays and Lesbians of Zimbabwe office, assaulted and detained 44 people, arrested them eventually without charges. And Lebanon, according to Human Rights Watch, is arresting men at a porn film theater and examining their rectums to prove they're gay. You can go to the Human Rights Watch website, hrw.org, to get more horrible
It's
details
going to discourage
about this.
people from having colonoscopies.
But in Tasmania, hundreds showed up in the rain to rally for marriage equality, which has now been, they've promised to vote on that there. And the Premier of South Australia has also promised a conscience vote on marriage. This is now what's happening in Australia.
Big rally
state
there.
by state,
Big
as,
rally there.
as is happening here.
Yeah.
In AIDS news, David Plunkett, who was imprisoned in New York State for biting a cop while he's HIV positive. This is one of these horrible, awful prosecutions.
HIV criminalization.
Right. Aggravated assault with a dangerous instrument. Utter nonsense. He spent 5 years in prison. The court has finally overturned the verdict. The county DA tried to prevent his release, but he is now out of prison.
Well,
Congratulations, David
I wonder
Plunkett.
if Bret Easton Ellis is going to bring charges against the gay people who spit on him.
Well, he implied it.
Because he said it was outside an HIV testing center.
Bret Easton Ellis
This scum.
was quoted as saying that out gay actor Matt Bomer
There he
was
is. There is ugly puss.
Yeah,
I hate to
wasn't-
say that I have an ex-boyfriend who slept with him.
wasn't Brett or Matt?
Brett.
Oh, Brett was an inappropriate choice to play Christian Grey in the movie of 50 Shades of Grey.
Because he's openly gay.
He'd be great for other roles, but this is too big a game.
He's married to another man.
So then he goes shopping at the West Hollywood Pavilion supermarket and ends up tweeting this. I was just spit on at the West Hollywood Pavilion supermarket while passing the free HIV testing van in the parking lot.
This guy is scum. But,
Oh,
you know,
my God.
He is scum.
Wow.
A lowlife.
Yeah. Good news from Great Britain. Right after the Olympics, another winning medal. Luke Anderson, 31 years old, a trans man, won the United Kingdom latest version of Big Brother. Celebrated with his wife of 1 year, Becky, and everybody's happy about him.
All right. I guess we are in entertainment news, aren't we?
We are. GLAAD and Latino organizations are celebrating the fact that they got TV stations in LA to cancel the show Jose Luis Sin Censura, which was one of these Maury Povich type shows where everybody yells faggot and holds fist fights. They had filed FCC complaints. They'd gotten corporations to pull their ads. I don't know about forcing the show off the air, but whatever.
Did you see Bring It On, the movie?
Yes, years ago.
Well, they've got Bring It On, the musical now on Broadway. And I have to say, you know, it's competing cheerleading squads and
Yeah.
it's got all kinds of things.
It was a cute movie,
but,
not much.
Libretto by Jeff Whitty, who did Avenue Q, Lin-Manuel Miranda, who did what's
The
the Washington Heights thing? No, In the Heights,
In
of
the
course. Oh God, I'm
Not
getting
the
slow
Bronx.
here. But so it's lively. It's lively. It's got a big transgender character. So it's a lot
And
of
some
fun.
great cheerleading moves.
It does do a lot of that. It does do a lot of that. And at Primary Stages, they're doing 3 one-act plays by Horton Foote, who lived to be almost 100. And his daughter, Hallie Foote, does his plays all the time. She is an absolute genius in these things. They're 3, if I describe them, they'd sound very slight. One of them, two
And
of
the
them are
production is called
Harrison, Texas. And it's 3 plays by Horton Foote at Primary Stages, 59 East 59th Street. And there's a new play coming to Broadway called The Performers, which is about a romantic comedy about 2 high school friends and the women in their lives who reconnect at the Adult Film Awards in Las Vegas. Cheyenne Jackson, are you listening? Bret Easton Ellis is going to play one of the heterosexuals. He's an out gay actor, Broadway actor. And Henry Winkler is playing the hardest working man in the porn business.
Credits are rolling. You got anything else?
No, I'm not going to talk about that.
Okay. Action-packed. Fight against Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan. That's our
Please.
last thought.
And elect a Democratic Congress.
And we will see you next week.
Right.